Right, welcome to the Lynn Lowdown. Today we have a special guest. We have State Senator Brendan Crighton with us. How are you doing, Brendan?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for taking your time to come on. A lot has been going on with COVID-19. So many things happening. Can you just talk about on the state level? What do you guys been up to these past couple weeks? Just trying to keep this under control.
Yep, absolutely. First, just want to say thank you to all the folks out there on the front lines, everyone in the medical field, all of our nurses, our doctors, but also our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, local officials, folks that are working in our grocery stores, anyone that's out there, putting themselves in harm's way to keep our state and country going. So thank you so much. A tremendous amount of gratitude towards you. So the state, it's been a very hectic couple weeks. I think the way that we're doing policy right now is both through executive orders coming from the governor, which happen pretty regularly, that we're able to weigh in on with him as legislators, and then also each respective legislative body, the House and the Senate, have different working groups and different areas of focus that we're looking for both legislative fixes, policies that we need to adjust to keep things running and to keep people safe and in their homes, and then also looking at the budgetary impacts and how much this is going to affect the overall economy, and just making sure that the resources are there. I think the most immediate thing is always keeping people safely in their homes, and having policies that encourage social isolation, certainly.
Yeah, and if you look at the impact as far as for working class, it's impacted a lot of folks who work probably at gyms, hospitals, grocery stores, and places of that area. People that aren't salaried, the hourly workers. It's really had an impact on them.
Absolutely. We get more folks reaching out, constituents contacting us for help with unemployment insurance. Obviously, there's been a lot of moves on the federal level. We're also looking to, create a little bit more flexibility and make sure that the folks that are unable to work right now because of this virus, that we're making sure that they're getting, the highest possible payment to help them make ends meet. To that end, too, we recognize there was certainly a housing crisis in Massachusetts prior to this. The rent is among the highest in the nation, and our cost of home ownership in the same boat. So that only got worse, significantly worse, a few weeks ago when this virus really hit us. So right now the Senate is working on a moratorium bill, moratorium on evictions and foreclosures during the course of this emergency. I've had a chance as the Senate chair on housing to really dive into that policy. So most of my efforts as an individual senator have been around crafting that policy. I'm hoping we can get it wrapped up and signed into law quickly. Today is the first of the month, and for many folks, that's the day you pay rent. And for many folks that are out of work, or their hours have been reduced, or they have increased childcare costs, it's going to be a whole lot harder this month to pay rent.
Mhm. Now, as far as safety precautions, we've seen a whole lot of issues concerning hospitals getting masks or ventilators or things they need. Where is Massachusetts on that as far as providing those to those in the healthcare field?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I know our governor has been really pushing the federal government to step up and to help find those resources. He was, quoted a week or so ago that, we had been pursuing PPEs through different orders, and we've been outbid by the federal government. So when you're competing against the federal government, you're going to lose 10 out of 10 times there. So I think the good news is the updates he gave last week around different shipments. I forget the exact quantities, but we have a significant amount of PPEs, personal protective equipment, on the way. Additionally, the administration rolled out an online portal where individuals and companies can donate or sell personal protective equipment, as well as volunteer support. So, it's great to see we're not just settling on one shipment. We recognize this is going to be a long-term issue. So, if folks out there have any of this equipment, from your business, or if you just have equipment that you can donate, it's certainly appreciated. And also, he put out a call to make sure that volunteers with community and healthcare experience are available to come to work if they're interested in volunteering. Obviously, our folks on the front line are stretched pretty thin, and unfortunately, the reality is many of those folks will get sick and will be out of commission. So I think we all need to step it up.
Yeah. Now, as far as as testing goes, do you know what we're doing with what the state's doing with that? Because I know a lot of places aren't prepared to test people, and some places are. So do you know where we're at with that?
Yeah, so I think at first there was a lot of criticism around our ability to test and get results back quickly. And, I think that was also, another criticism of the federal government, that the supplies weren't available, and that we, just didn't have the material to adequately test people. And there were some regulations that were strict around who could test and what types of tests were allowed to be done. A lot of those issues, I think, have been resolved. So, every day there's an update from the governor on how many new tests were done in Massachusetts. And we were hearing from folks, in hospitals and community health centers saying, we submitted a test, or we passed along the information, but we can't get results in a timely enough fashion. I'd say over the past week, we've seen a great improvement in that.
Yeah.
But it's only going to get worse. I think the estimate, the peak of this is estimated to be between April 7th and April 17th. So, we need more tests. We need more equipment all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing for folks to keep in mind, especially when, everyone's operating under very difficult circumstances, either economically or, just being confined and socially isolated, is that this is going to take a little while. This isn't a 1 or 2 week thing. This is, at least through May, and, I'd brace ourselves for even longer. So it's going to require, a ton of discipline, a ton of selflessness, and just, supporting each other throughout this process.
And yeah, the support is definitely needed, because we have, at this point, the impact is also on the education, where with the notice school won't be going back until probably May is what's looking like right now. Just talk about some of the bills you're working on as well, just overall the bills that you're working on moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the biggest one right now is the moratorium bill that I mentioned. So that started in the process yesterday, moved through one of our committees. Essentially, it'd be a 90-day moratorium on evictions and on foreclosures. So it's either 90 days, or the length of the emergency. And our thought process there is, if our number one goal is to keep people in their homes in this short term, we can't have folks being put out on the street or at risk of homelessness because of not being able to pay the rent when people can't, go to work. So I'm hoping that moves forward. Some of the work is around making sure our homeless shelters are fully equipped with personal protective equipment, but also that they have the space needed should, someone contract the virus there. Obviously, you can't socially isolate in a shelter setting. Mm-hmm. There's just not enough space to do so. So we're looking to, partner with local communities, but also with existing state infrastructure, whether that be, college dorms or, vacant, nursing homes, or even, we would reutilize Union Hospital for some testing purposes. Yeah. So just making sure that space is available. Like I said, unfortunately, it seems that, we're not quite at the peak of this yet. Mm-hmm. So we need to be prepared for, when a nursing home or when a homeless shelter sees a series of infections. And, You saw it over in Revere at the Jack Satter House, and you're seeing it, unfortunately, at the Holyoke Soldiers Home. Tragically, veterans losing their lives and at a very confined space out there. And I'm not going to cast judgment on any of these institutions, but it highlights, I think, the challenge that we face, and that this is going to be a hard time. I mean, you have to think globally on this a little bit too. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at what other countries have gone through and using that to kind of gauge our expectations. It's going to be, some very trying times moving forward, but I have faith in the people of Lynn and in of the Commonwealth and my whole district and the country that we'll pull together as we have in the past.
Yeah, and you talked about those who are homeless to have to be in the shelter, and I saw the Suffolk University, I believe they're using the dorms to house some of the people who may be homeless. Do you foresee more institutions doing that? As all their students are not in dorms at this time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mukala. I do see that being very likely moving forward in the future. You had asked me earlier too, what else is going on? I mean, probably the most recent update is the continued shelter in place, to a certain extent, or to stay at home advisory that we're getting from the state as well as the federal government finally caught up as well. So just to remind folks, it's not necessarily about your health or well-being, but about your neighbors or your other loved ones. And the only way we're going to stop the spread is if you stay at home. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we want folks to stay healthy and get fresh air, but doing so with just your immediate family members and household members, and doing so at a safe distance, certainly.
Yeah, and we saw, I believe state of Texas issued a stay-at-home ordinance. A few states have issued a stay-at-home ordinance. I mean, are we going to come to a point where it's just going to be all states going to issue this stay-at-home ordinance?
It's a great question, man. I hope so, as sad as that is to say. I think, we don't have hard borders here in the country, and state to state, you're able to travel freely. So even for those, more rural areas that weren't expected to have, to get hit as hard, you're starting to see more and more cases there. And it's inevitable that, once you see one or two, it's going to spread. So I think every state needs to be prepared. And, that speaks to how long this is going to take to get out of this mess, right? So if you have Massachusetts, acting responsibly in slowing the spread, and then we try to return back to normal life and get the economy going again, but neighboring states or anywhere aren't, you're not going to solve that issue. It's not like each state is on an island of its own. So I hope countrywide, and I think, again, that points to the need for leadership at the federal government, which we have not had at all in this.
And so lastly, before we let you go, like, where to go from here moving forward? What's the next steps that the state level is taking, and what's the next steps as residents that we should be taking?
Absolutely. So, I think you getting the word out through this program is tremendously valuable, and I hope folks continue to communicate and to share ideas and thoughts. I will say that we've gotten so many constituent emails and phone calls, and we run those up the chain in our working groups, and some of those suggestions or comments or criticisms have evolved into policy. So certainly have your voices heard at the local and state level and federal level to a certain degree. Mayor McGee's been doing a tremendous job, as well as the city council and school committee in Lynn, and they have a command center up and running and regularly communicating. So I anticipate that Rep. Cahill, Rep. Capano, Rep. Ehrlich, and Rep. Wong, we will all continue as a delegation to work with our local officials to make sure that they get the resources they need. And then to the same end, while we're used to being very deliberative as a legislature, we need to recognize that decisions need to be made quickly. And I certainly don't believe there'd be rush decisions, but decisions made with a sense of urgency. So I suspect that every day you're going to see updates from our end, from the governor's end, from the city's end. So to the extent that people can stay as informed as possible, and please just stay safe out there and try to be as patient as you can.
All right. All right, Brendan, thank you so much for taking the time out to discuss this. We really appreciate this.
No, I really appreciate the service you're providing the community, and please stay safe to you and your family.
All right, you as well.
All right, take care.
You too. You guys have been watching the Lynn Lowdown. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.